The Ashes produced some of the greatest moments in rugby league history. It grew into a national event, turning players into household names.
Jonathan Davis! Gary Schofield!
But as the game entered the 21st century, what was once the pinnacle of international rugby league began to fade. After 2003, the Ashes disappeared, and it would be more than 20 years before its return. The first Rugby League Ashes series took place over a century ago. In 1908, Australian Rugby League was barely a year old when the Kangaroos sailed to Britain to compete against the Northern Union in a 3-test series. James Lomas, one of the game's first stars, captained the British side to 2 wins to secure the inaugural Ashes. The opening match ended in a 22-all draw, with Jim Devereux scoring the first Ashes hat-trick for Australia. The tour was a financial disaster. Promoter J.J. Giltinan was left bankrupt after poor weather and economic conditions led to low attendances. He later recalled, "It was one of the coldest winters to date. We have nothing but rain, snow and sleet. And the referees are cruel. They didn't give us anything." Tours continued to be a staple in the rugby league calendar. Australia won their first series in 1911-12, led by captain Chris McKivitt, though the Kangaroos would have to wait until the 1960s to win on British soil again. The series attracted huge crowds in Australia, with many early series drawing over 100,000 fans cumulatively. In 1932, 72,000 packed the Sydney Cricket Ground, a record for an international rugby league match until 1992. By the early 1920s, the game became officially known as Rugby League. From 1924, the Northern Union team competed as England, despite representing Great Britain. England's victory in the 1937 to 1938 series marked 8 consecutive wins and 11 victories from 13 contests, including 2 whitewashes, the second in 1928 when the Ashes trophy was introduced. Junty Parkin led England through much of the 1920s and was later an inaugural inductee into the RFL Hall of Fame in 1988. Another inaugural Hall of Famer, Jim Sullivan, widely regarded as Britain's greatest pre-war fullback, won 5 Ashes series between 1924 and 1926-1934, captaining the side in 10 tests, the most in Ashes history. Games in the UK regularly drew 20 to 30,000 fans in cities including London, Newcastle, Birmingham and Manchester. Dally Messenger, one of the sport's early pioneers, played a crucial role in their first Ashes win, while try-scoring forward phenom Frank Burge played a huge role in the Kangaroos' 1920s Ashes win, scoring a try in an 8-4 victory. Charlie Fraser also scored a try in this match and was the youngest player to play a test match for Australia at 18 years and 301 days old until 1990 when he was surpassed by Brad Fittler. A year after World War II ended, the Ashes returned after a 9-year hiatus. England became the first British side to compete in a major sporting series abroad after the war, as they sailed to the southern hemisphere on the HMS Indomitable, one of Britain's most tested carriers of the war. England won the series 2-1 on away territory, as rugby league enjoyed a post-war boom in the UK, with healthy crowds and great national interest in signature events like the Challenge Cup, World Cup and the Ashes that returned to home soil in 1948, celebrating a whitewash win with a total crowd of 110,000. England switched to the Great Britain brand in 48 and won 3 of the first 4 post-war Ashes series. Australia's first post-war win came in 1950, their first victory in over 3 decades. The little master Clive Churchill captained the side as the 50s were the start of a landscape shift that saw the series far more competitive. Australia won their 4th series in 1954, but Great Britain would dismiss the potential Australia fight back with a 4-peat of Ashes wins from 1956 to 1962 in what produced some of the greatest teams in British history.
From a scrum 45 yards out, Britain's halfback genius Murphy completely outthinks the opposition.
Britain, captained by Alan Prescott in 1958, bounced back to win the series 2-1. After losing the opening match, Prescott broke his arm just 4 minutes into the second test, but continued to play and led them to back-to-back Ashes wins for the first time in a decade. One of the game's greatest ever try scorers, Billy Boston, burst onto the international scene in the 50s, and his 3 tries in the 1962 series win saw him become the top try scorer in Ashes history for Britain with 9, and would later be the first rugby league player to be knighted in the UK. The great 62 team was led by Eric Ashton, with stars like Neil Fox and Alex Murphy alongside him. Fox is only second to Jim Sullivan in all-time Ashes points for Britain, and is the record holder for total career points in the sport with over 6,000. This series victory was Britain's 18th victory to Australia's 4, but the Kangaroos ended the 60s with 3 straight series wins, their first ever run of consecutive Ashes victories. The Kangaroos' greatest ever winger, Ken Irvine, scored 5 tries in the 1963 series to start their 3-peat. His total 12 tries is the most in Ashes history.
But there's still Irvine. The Australian winger sews the game up with another thrilling try.
Captain Reg Gasnier was crucial in Australia winning their first away series since 1912, while the Kangaroos' second all-time point scorer, Graham Langlands, also starred, scoring 2 tries in their 50 points to 12 victory in the second test of their 1663-64 series win. The third win of the three-peat in 1967 was captained by John Raper as they came back from losing the opening match to claim a 2-1 series victory. The 1970s began in Australia, where Great Britain claimed the Ashes for the first time in 8 years, coming from behind after a heavy opening defeat to win the series 2-1. Hull KR halfback Roger Millwood was the star for Britain, scoring twice in the second test to spark a 28-7 victory.
And Millwood is in. What a beautiful try.
He crossed again in the decider, where winger John Atkinson scored a brace in front of over 61,000 at the Sydney Cricket Ground. Loose forward, Malcolm Riley was named man of the match in the third test for his tireless work on both sides of the ball, while Captain Frank Myler became the last Great Britain skipper ever to lift the Ashes. It was Britain's first series win on Australian soil since 1958 and would be their last. The balance of power was well and truly underway. Australia responded by winning the remaining 4 Ashes series held in the 70s. The game in the Southern Hemisphere continued to professionalise as the domestic Australian leagues had grown stronger in coaching and facilities as the talent pool improved with fitter, faster and stronger athletes emerging. Australian captain Graham Langlands cemented himself as one of the sports immortals, leading the Kangaroos to victories in 1973 and 1974, along with Arthur Beetson, who became the first Indigenous player to captain Australia and was immense in those series wins. The final match of the 70s ended in the Kangaroos' first ever whitewash victory, with Michael Cronin, one of many stars in that side. His 24 goals in the whitewash series helped him sit third in the all-time Ashes points for the Kangaroos. Immortals Ron Coote and Bob Fulton also starred in the 70s. Coote scored a vital try in the deciding test of 74.
Looking for support, there's Cronin. Cronin over the quarter line to Coote. Coote going for the corner and he's in. He's there.
While Fulton played all 10 of his Ashes appearances in the 70s, scoring 4 tries and adding 4 field goals in 3 series wins. The 1979 victory saw Australia now at 11 wins, with Britain's lead down to 8. And that lead would be cut to just 4 after a decade of Australian dominance in the 1980s. The 82 and 86 sides labelled as the Invincibles and the Unbeatables, winning every match on the tours. Since 1908, touring teams had faced a full schedule of matches alongside the Ashes, often 20 to 30 games against club, state and national sides, creating a carnival of rugby league that became a defining part of the sports culture. The 1982 series saw the Ashes debut of Mal Meninga, who went on to make a record 15 Ashes appearances and finish as the top point scorer in series history. These 80s Kangaroos sides were stacked with all-time greats, including half-pairing Peter Sterling and Brett Kenny, who steered them to victory in 82. In 1986, the Unbeatables side dominated again, captained by Wally Lewis, who was later named in the Australian Team of the Century. Michael O'Connor and Gene Miles both crossed for hat-tricks in the opening test at Old Trafford, played in front of more than 50,000, as Australia swept the series 3-0. Britain's only bright spot came in 1988, when they won their first test in 10 years, though Australia still secured the series comfortably.
That's a great try. Oh, Great Britain in, and he does a bit of a boogie.
Gary Schofield, Ellery Hanley and Martin O'Fire offered moments of quality. Schofield's 6 tries across the decade would help him sit third on Britain's all-time Ashes try list. The 1990s began with one of the all-time great Ashes series. Malcolm Riley's squad brought excitement to British fans, who packed out Wembley, Old Trafford and Elland Road with over 130,000 in attendance. But Australia remained the heavy favourites, and it would have been a major upset if Britain could win. The first test saw an incredible atmosphere and a sensational game, with Gary Schofield producing a moment of magic to set up the match-clinching try.
Eastwood, what a try! Oh, unbelievable! That is magic!
The second test was one of the greatest games the sport has ever seen. Paul Laughlin's intercept try levelled the scores at 10-all, and with the match deep into injury time, Ricky Stewart combined with Mal Meninga from their own 20-metre line to score one of the great match-winning tries in the sport's history.
He's under the halfway! He's waiting for Eddie Housen! He's got support! Eddie Housen with him! Back it goes to Meninga! How does he get try? He gets goal! Oh, what a try!
In the deciding test, Australia's power and discipline proved too strong. Their defence, led by forward Paul Sirinin, kept Britain scoreless as Meninga scored the pick of the tries in a 14-0 win to claim a hard-fought series win to kick off the decade. The remaining 2 series of the decade reinforced why the Ashes was the pinnacle of the sport. 2 sides stacked with champion players delivering great performances. The 1992 series began with Meninga scoring a brace to lead the Kangaroos to a first Test win.
Oh, Meninga's having a night!
Britain hit back to stun the Australians. Schofield was outstanding as the British attack blitzed the favourites to set up a decider. But once again, Australia's discipline and individual brilliance made the difference. Tries from Meninga and Daly sealed another tight series win, with Britain's penalties and errors proving costly. The final series of the decade in 1994 once again drew huge crowds, with over 140,000 in total attendance. Jonathan Davis scored one of the great Ashes tries in the opening Test at Wembley, as Britain once again started with a win.
He's got some space! He's going for the corner! He's got his head back! And the Welshman is in!
But Australia claimed convincing victories in the final 2 games. Meninga captained the side in what would be the final Ashes series of the century, as rugby league was about to change forever. A broadcast war erupted in Australia, and its outcome created the 2 fully professional competitions that we see today, the NRL and Super League. The sport became fully professional in both hemispheres, but the international game took a back seat. The days of long tours between the nations ended. The British game became a summer sport with domestic rugby taking priority, while State of Origin in Australia grew into the sport's showpiece event. The Ashes returned in 2001 after a long hiatus, but the series came back in a much smaller state. The sport's national profile in the UK declined, with Tests now played in traditional heartlands rather than major football stadiums. Still, the series produced memorable moments. Britain had a new generation of stars in Paul Sculthorpe and Jamie Peacock, while Australia boasted 2 all-time greats in Darren Lockyer and Andrew Johns. The Kangaroos won the series 2-1, with Johns leading the way as Australia levelled the overall Ashes tally at 19 series apiece. The 2003 series would be the last Ashes for over 2 decades, but it was among the most competitive of the modern era. All 3 games decided by a single score late on.
He's got speed to burn! Oh, they're over! The Aussies are over! It's Lockyer!
Yet again, the Kangaroos found a way to win each match. After that, the Tri-Nations and 4 Nations replaced the Ashes, while State of Origin became the sport's premier event. More than 20 years later, the Ashes finally returned. But the game looks very different. In Australia, rugby league has become one of the country's top sports, with huge TV deals, major sponsorships, and elite talent. In Britain, the sport has survived rather than grown, and the gap between the 2 competitions has never been wider. Still, the return of the Ashes captured real excitement, a record UK Ashes crowd at Wembley for the opening Test, and sellouts at Everton and Headingley. England remain heavy underdogs, with the Kangaroos widely backed for a whitewash. Without better governance and stronger talent pathways, that gap is only likely to widen, and the result being the Ashes disappears again.